Unbelievable. Let's first start with a picture and sound confirmation as I take a deep breath. Hello, everyone who is here already. Wednesday, April 17th, and well, I'm here. I made it to the barn. And what's up, Thaddeus and David? And I guess Ono was here for a minute, though I got to see Ono in person. Saw Jay at the show. Okay, so here's the deal. I pulled up to my house about 45 minutes ago, and my flight was delayed coming back from NAB. And apparently some genius decided to update the software. The IT department decided to update the software that communicates with all of the planes and air traffic control about the weight distribution on the planes. And they can't take off until that's cleared. So apparently there are sensors in all of these airplanes which can tell whether or not there are going to be any distribution issues. So as a result of that, at 8 o'clock in the morning, we sat on the tarmac for an hour plus. So while I thought I was going to get back in a comfortable amount of time from arriving home, that was not the case. So I raced, got the space warmed up a little bit, got everything turned on, and miracle of miracles, I think I went live on the hour. So welcome, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Yes, it's not aspirin, David. I've been running around just trying to get to this place in the last 45 minutes so I could do the live stream. And I wasn't going to cancel it. And I'm glad there are people here. And we have some things to talk about. As always, the weekly live stream is really for you. And it is supposed to be, it's supposed to be all about the chat and engagement and interaction. And if you have a question or you want to bring up a topic or you want to get my attention, I've got the comments and reactions right up here inside of Ecamm Live. And just put an @ symbol and theC47, this thing right here. And it'll catch my attention and I'll start talking to you about it. Hey, Sky, good to have you. All right, so, here we are, and we are doing things, and another NAB has come and gone, and officially has. In fact, as I was just, sounds like military up there. As I was just trying to get ready to do the live stream, I saw an email come through that the show's officially over, which it would have been just over an hour ago. Today was 9 to 2. The last day of the show, just if you're not familiar with it, is really the day that the exhibitors walk around and they just go to each other's booths. So if you think that when you go to NAB, I don't have any time, I can only go on that last half day, do yourself a favor and don't go, because you're not going to find people at the booths because they're all just roaming around, and then they're waiting, especially from that sort of noon until 2 o'clock for the show to end. And then it's not really a race, but when you're dealing with Freeman and you're trying to get your stuff, that's a whole other negotiation that happens. Thank you, David, for welcoming me back. And yes, I did survive, as I always do. And the older I get, the more I survive, the less I am compelled to go and do, late nights all of the time. In fact, I don't think there was a night that I got back to my hotel after midnight, which was just fine with me because it allowed me to get up early, go to the show. I did have an exhibitor badge, which was great because on the Saturday when I was there, I got to kind of walk around and see some things. David, good to have you. Sully, good to have you as well. I did not check out, David. You can give me a hard time about it. The Tilta tripods. I did see some other interesting things. Small Rig released some co-branded or co-developed or buy products, and they like to use a little X symbol now for that. And one of them was Caleb Pike's battery, the 212 watt hour battery with a gazillion connection connectors for power. And at the same release, there were a couple of other creators, influencers, YouTubers, and Potato Jet Gene was there announcing and showing his new tripod, which is a very quick release. We're starting to see this for monopods and tripods. This whole idea of controlling your sticks, your feet, well, not your feet, your legs of your tripod or monopod really started with the Flowtech system from Sockler, but has now really gone in like just gangbusters with these little, like you grab it and you just hold it and then the legs come out, let go. It's good. David ordered the battery. Yeah, unless you're traveling, you're getting on the plane, that battery is crazy. David, I'm going to give you some thoughts on the Pixis and some of the other stuff from Blackmagic, because of course, as we know, on Friday, and we haven't had a live stream since then, it was just a couple of days after Camera Flask last week. There were about I'm gonna slightly overestimate. There were about 3,000 products announced by Blackmagic, but it was really a lot of products. And I think I woke up at like 4:30. So we'll get through this thing, and I'm excited, and we're going to start talking about it. So let's start with Blackmagic, and first and foremost, again, just as a reminder, an @ symbol for at theC47, and then it just grabs my eye when I'm looking over there at the chat. So Pixis camera is interesting. I actually thought that, you're welcome, Darren. I thought that the Pixis camera was going to be a little bit more exciting to me than it actually turned out to be when I went and looked at the camera, because the value is there 100%. It comes in 3 mounts. You've got L mount, you've got PL mount, which is just slightly more expensive by $150 or $200 US, and then you have EF mount. For me, my money's on the L mount, because I think it's, of all of them, unless you're strictly going PL mount lenses, I think it's the most universal mount that you can buy of the Pixis cameras. Whoa, you're having an Avalor? I'm not gonna have one right now. You almost tempted me, David. So the camera, we know what the value is. I mean, the value's there. It's $2,995 US dollars. I think 3,195 for the PL mount, and it's pretty incredible. You've got a full frame 6K camera, but there are caveats, and I have 3 that were sort of, immediately apparent when it came to the camera system. And one of them, when I went up to go see the camera, was one that Caleb had brought up to me, which I think is an important one. So we'll start with that, which oddly enough, while we're talking about Caleb and his battery, has to do with battery power. So they're using Sony BP, I guess they're BPU batteries, and I've been using those batteries for a long time. They've been, they're batteries that have been on, FS7 used those batteries, FS7 II, I believe, I'm almost positive, FX6, FX9. Great battery system, and it's going into the back of the camera body. But when you look at the battery and then you look on either side of it, there are ports running on either side of the battery bay, the recessed battery bay. So the problem with that is that people are going to want to adapt the camera to V-mount lock batteries or maybe gold mount. And if there's some sort of adapter, which sometimes there are, which goes into that little slot, it's going to cover almost definitely those ports. So that's number one, losing ports because you want to use a different battery solution and keep it attached to the camera, because that's the idea of a box camera, is you're building it out and it's sort of modular. Is definitely that. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. So the so that's number one. The second thing, which you probably noticed, is on the left-hand side of the camera body. Unlike the 12K camera, which has two displays, there is one display, and it is a fixed position display, unless I'm being stupid. So it's locked in there. Now, what that means is you could opt for a third-party EVF or Blackmagic's new EVF, or I guess potentially their previous EVF. There's a lot of people who don't shoot that way. But you're going to have to get either an EVF or an external monitor, or a combination of both. So if it had a flip out screen that had an articulation to it, then I think then that would have been a correct choice. And then the third one is no built-in ND filters. So, those are three relatively significant things. The batteries that that they're using, quite honestly, will probably power that camera for a really, really, really long time. And their style of battery, and Canon has a similar style, that are that come in large capacities. So I think you can overcome the battery one. You just have to think about the fact that you're probably not going to go into a V mount type solution. But the screen and the NDs, those are things that you're going to have to deal with. And it's priced right, that's for sure. But I was a little less excited about the camera after those components, because I felt like I would have to, do a lot of those things again, which is, again, getting a, um, ND filter, at minimum a very ND or fixed. And I don't agree, David. I mean, not I don't agree with you. They say there's no room in the form factor. There absolutely is room in the form factor. I mean, you have to decide as a camera manufacturer what you're putting into a camera, but it's not. Well, here's my point. I'll just say it. Canon EOS C70. Have you seen that camera? It's very squat. It's not very long in terms of the depth of the camera, and there's ND filters built into that. So there are decisions you have to make in terms of what your camera can and can't do, what ports it has, and then that dictates, to a degree, a very large degree, what electronics are sitting inside of that camera body. But you also have the choice, when you're designing a camera, which they have from the ground up, to extend the depth of that camera slightly, if that in fact was the difference. But this is really a Gen 1 Pixis camera, in my opinion, so they could easily make some changes. They've kind of played this game a little bit with the pocket camera. Some have ND, some don't, but you get these features, the other one doesn't have them. So I don't buy that it had to do with the fact that there was no room in the form factor. They designed the form factor, not invented it, but they designed their camera in and around a platform, just the same way a car manufacturer would say, we're going to build this on a truck platform, or on an SUV platform, or on a sedan style platform. You get the point. Okay, so that's Pixis, and then we'll move on to the next thing in the lineup, which is a 12K camera, and that's pretty interesting. You're talking about, at least for me, I watched the event with Grant, a camera where he said, which is kind of ridiculous, he's like, we wanted to build a camera where money was not ever going to be the the deciding factor. It's like money's not driving the the design of this camera and what this camera is going to have. We're just going to design the camera that we think people will want. So somebody did bring something up to me. I have to try to remember it from a cine standpoint, definitely from a crewing like AC standpoint, and it was definitely not thought out perfectly. That said, kind of jaw dropped to the table, at least, maybe not to the ground, when at the end he said it was under $15,000, because there's a lot of camera inside of that 12K camera for the money that they're asking. I'm not saying that everybody's going to go out and buy a $15,000 camera, but there's a lot of camera inside of that. And that is going to be the camera body and style that will be used for the 17K sensor, which he showed during that said event. So I think it's interesting. You know, the lensing component for the 17K camera, that's going to be a challenge. You know, if Fujifilm would come out with their GFX 100 Mark, let's say 3, but they had done it in the digital cinema camera form factor, that would make a lot of sense to me. In fact, there was somebody at the show who historically has done lens mods, who has now done a mod on the GFX 100 too, to build it out as a cine camera. So you have a medium format, basically IMAX camera. And I think that's where Blackmagic's trying to go. They're also thinking about these much higher resolutions for things like capturing content for the Sphere in Las Vegas, and there'll be more of those, of course, in the future. So, are they going to be the cameras? Are those companies and the people who produce that content going to go to that 12 or in the future the 17K camera? I don't know, but yeah, okay. Okay, so David says, what was this year's hidden gem you found gem? Okay. Yes, it is old fast glass. Thanks, David. On the mods for lenses who have now done the mod on the GFX 102. So the hidden gem for me was this company Beeble. So BEEBLE.ai. You should probably look them up. I did a quick little live stream from their booth, and I found out about them originally from the other company that I think is doing some really interesting stuff. And the name of that company is Lightcraft. And Lightcraft is a company that's making the app called Jet Set. So Jet Set Lightcraft. And first of all, Jet Set Lightcraft thing is bonkers. And I think there's so much power under the hood of their app and their solution that isn't just about using an iPhone to capture tracking data, so on and so forth, but you can use any mirrorless or digital cinema camera with that and an Axoon CMO to capture and calibrate your lenses and get all of that set up. That's going to be really, really interesting. And that's definitely a road that I want to go down. At the moment, I think there are some post-productions, I wouldn't call them hurdles, but I would say that, it wouldn't hurt if you knew something like Blender. And then Beeble has this, I'll call it an app for now, though I can sort of see where they're going as a company. Their app is called Switchlight, and it's an AI-based system which essentially can take a person in any environment. So, look behind me, and I have all of this stuff here, and it's going to do a multi-part process if you go to the website Beeble, BEEBLE.ai, to extract information, depth information, creates a mat, so on and so forth. And it's just absolutely bonkers when you see what it can do. And I think that the relighting component of it, once you've done that, is unbelievably impressive from what I've seen. Now, it's currently only PC and Linux, and I think that they have a lot to do, as many companies do in this space. So, it's one thing to show a flashy demo or to show a quick workflow and really get people gaga, goo goo eyed and stuff. Is that yeah, that's it's another thing to think about the entire process of somebody who's creating content and all of the steps that they have to go through to get an exceptional result using a tool like that. And I think they have the brain bar and the wherewithal to do it. They're based out of Seoul, Korea. I think they see the big picture because I spent probably I went and saw the stuff and then I went away and then I came back and I talked to the head of the company, the CEO, uh, Hoon, and yeah, I think there's a lot in there, and I think there's a lot to unpack. I think that the lighting part of it is amazing, but what I want to see is how they connect how we use lights in the real world, soft lights, hard lights, that kind of stuff, and translate that so that we have more control over that in that AI type um, stuff. Yeah, yeah, it's definitely David. Um, it's definitely more than stuff that's out there, and they're smart. I mean, that's the key. It's not a one trick pony. They're looking at big picture, and it got me really excited because I think that if they approach it the right way, which is, in my opinion, the way a lot of companies should, as we start to use tools that are based on machine learning and AI and things like that, um, the way to win this is is not to create tools that just completely replace people. There will be tools that completely replace people. There always have been. But to say, you've spent X number of years learning about the tech and craft of video production and filmmaking. What you can now do is you can get to the finish line or do certain things in terms of, planning a production, and you can do them either faster or in a different way creatively, whatever it's going to be. And that's the exciting part for me because, these tools in the hands of somebody who doesn't understand lighting, even though there's some level of you don't need to know everything that's going under the hood. But with people who don't know lighting, they're not going to get the same results using tools like this that people who understand lights and lighting do. Yeah. So there you go. Justin, I would say so. There was a lot of virtual production at the show, and you have companies like I think it's Stipe and Planar was there with OptiTrack and other solutions. There are definitely and were definitely quite a few virtual production solutions at the show. And there were a lot of companies that were working with Unreal Engine, and some with Blender, and some with both. The company that was most interesting to me was Lightcraft because they're making this product Jet Set, which I think is going to be for us if you're not looking for rear projection, traditional volume, but you're going to do it on green screen. Could be really interesting. Now, what's really interesting about Switchlight is that is not a green screen workflow. That is an anything background, any environment workflow. So, virtual production was definitely there, but it was there in the brain bar. Your entry point is $250,000 plus dollars, and so I think that from that standpoint, Justin, that we're going to probably get within the year or maybe a little bit more or a little bit less a more defined um, separation between sort of these, I wouldn't even call them mid, but I say high end solutions, and then something like Jet Set, Lightcraft. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, that is definitely the route I want to go down in the next 6 months or so. Not every episode, not every single thing I'm doing, but between Switchlight and Jet Set, and then getting a good PC for the fact that some of these things are going to benefit from being PC based with an NVIDIA chip. And it's really interesting. And to that end, I met with Puget Systems, which is based out of Washington State, and they make custom builds of computers, and they've been at this game for a long time. And in fact, their benchmarks are oftentimes what manufacturers use when new systems come out and they are tested. And Puget now has a laptop computer which is really designed for creatives on the PC side. And they are locking the basically GPU into the highest end mobile GPU they can put into the system. Mobile version of a 4090, but it's really more like a desktop for. It's like he was telling me it's it's definitely not what you would get in an enterprise rack based system, but it's a completely optimized system so that everything runs at the highest level that it can for the types of things that we're all doing. And it's really fascinating because you're locking in your GPU and your CPU. Then you can configure other things. You can go up to 96 gigs of RAM, and you can add up to count them, 3 hard drives. And he said a lot of people, what the workflow will be is that one drive will essentially be your operating system and will hold your apps and everything else. One drive will essentially be for I think he was saying people will do a dedicated render drive, and then the other one will be for your projects and everything, your assets and everything you're working on. But I think you can literally put up to NVMe drives. You can put up to 3 8 terabyte drives, and it's a laptop. So it's 17-inch laptop. I think the base is around $3,500 US, and then you're pretty much getting close to fully kitting it out at around 5. But in order to kind of go down the path of some of these things, I think it's going to be probably important to have a PC like that. So we'll see. We talked about some stuff. How about remote control lighting color Sidus Link to match virtual lighting? So I think you're talking more about image-based lighting, David, and there's not a lot of stuff right now coming from Aperture. Their big announcement were the Infinimats, which look amazing. But I think that they will get into the image-based lighting game pretty soon. They didn't tell me they're going to, but I know who's on the team, and I know the history of the people who are on the team, one in particular. And I can't imagine they're not going to go IBL in the very near future. I guess we'll see what happens at Cinegear and what kind of things are announced there, because oftentimes what will happen is there's an intention by a company to announce and release a product at NAB, for instance. It could be said, a different trade show. And then they're just not ready, and they're not ready to show it. And then we see that product launch at somewhere like Cinegear. So there you go. Let's see. I'm scrolling up here. How about remote control lighting? Yeah. So, but the new Sidus Link Pro app looks amazing and is really designed for a kind of a very updated version of what people who are lighting designers. A lighting console is its own thing. It's generally for live production. It's for events and concerts and things like that. And you program in cues. Well, they have somebody at Aperture now who not only has that experience using those products, but is or was largely responsible for designing the update to the app. It's very powerful. And when you take Sidus One and you are able to then take lights from other manufacturers and put them within the Sidus ecosystem, I think that's pretty interesting. Also, Lux Nan Light. Nothing really yet in the image-based lighting space. So right now, when I'm thinking image-based lighting, I'm primarily thinking of Quasar and I'm thinking of Kino Flow with the Mimic. But we'll see stuff start to happen, I think, in the next 6 to 12 months in that space where we'll see more, where we're feeding video to lights and controlling them and timing them to other things. And I think image-based lighting is going to be as, if not more important for non-rear projection virtual production, meaning green screen based, because you want to sell it. Even if you know what the backplate is, you're not rear projecting, you're not lighting talent with that screen. So image-based lighting to kind of sell it more is, I think, going to be important. All right, let's see. Good thoughts. My issue today is a huge price difference between Ximetry and Zero Density or Brainstorm or other similar software. I mean, it's crazy right now. I mean, and I think that um, this is why, in general, not your specific solution or workflow, I'm looking for leapfrog technology. I could have easily, I didn't have the money to do it, but I could have easily dropped 50 or $100,000 to get into virtual production and could probably be up and running doing some very interesting things in this space. But um, I feel like it's a bit of a money pit unless you're building a volume. I think right now it's that, there are some mid-ish tier solutions like View One where you go in and it's turnkey. So let's say you have a 10-foot by, pardon me, 20-foot, um, panel behind you. And then what you're going to do is you go into, and they've built their software so you just load environments, right? So they're trying to take some of the pain points out of what they're doing. But the entry point, I think, is still around $250,000. So that's why things like Jet Set are really exciting to me. Because Unreal has a horrible composure pathway, among other things, that will change in the next year or two, I think. Yeah, okay. Aperture mats can show images, however, they'll be lower resolution. That is absolutely true, Justin. Um, you know, and you can do some things that will probably sell things, but that 20 by 20 is huge. And what did Tim say? I think an 8 by 8 has 4 zones, I believe. So, you break that up and you start building with 8 by 8s, then you can do the math. Maybe it's more than 4. It's not much though. So it just depends on how you build these out and what they are. So there is an IBL component to them, but it's not really a straightforward, okay, I'm going to load a video file, boom, Bob's your uncle. All right, let's see. David, I didn't actually go to Zune's booth this time. I walked straight past it because I just tested their newer light and the fan was too loud. They do have a 300 watt. I didn't see the 500. I didn't know about that. And the 300 is very similar to the 200 in the sense that it has a boost mode, which I think you can kind of run as a continuous mode. But that's how they're doing that. Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't know that Ted talked about getting into the IBL thing, but they're definitely going that route. And when you say, Justin, what issues are you talking about with the Mimic? I'd be interested to hear about that. I mean, their cost of entry is high. But I do think that those are the two companies that are really doing stuff, and it sounds like there's a couple of people who really want to get in there for this. What is, I don't know what retroreflective is. You have to explain, David. I might know about it, but it's just not registering right now. Maybe because of lack of sleep and my travel and getting in late. Oh, I see. Detailed reflections. Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's also a timing factor to this, right? If you're talking about just shooting a scene in an environment that's relatively static, then selling image-based lighting is more about just sort of introducing some of that color palette and things like that. If you're recreating a scene where somebody is supposed to be standing in Times Square, then there's got to be a lot of crap going on with that IBL. there's billboards flashing. They change from one ad to the other. There's all kinds of things. So Godox has a Batman calling light called the Beamlight Max 90. I did not see it. I wouldn't be surprised. They did have some what look like mat-based mattresses, as my friend says, with these, inflatable modifiers. And I talked to Ted about the Infinimat, and for sure, one of the big things is that inflatable component is also creating a lot of structure to the mats. David says there was a ring light on the camera that sent green or blue light to a highly reflective background reflector. Yes. Now I'm tracking with you, David. I actually have one. Chromat, is that the name of the company? They were based out of England, and I still have one. I have a very small one. I think it might. I think mine is about a 6x6. It might be an 8x8. And they were also designed to be curtain lights, and they have like a crushed glass inside of them that obviously doesn't feel like glass, but it's built into the material. And what you do is you put your little ring light, and you can set it to either green or blue. And if it's far enough away from, and it doesn't have to be that far away for this to happen, from your talent, there's enough fall off quickly enough that you don't really register that green, or blue on the person themselves. Now, the other reason they get it far enough away is because you don't really want a weird blue or green catch light in the person's eyes. It's highly effective. What's really interesting about it is that you can almost have your screen directly behind talent. And because the way the light system works, it doesn't need to be, you don't need that 6 feet from the screen for it to work well. I have it. I mean, I know exactly where it is, and it's probably over there somewhere on the other side of the wall. It's really good. But I don't even know if the company's still in business anymore. But there was a U.S. distributor is out of business now, which was DVE Store, which I loved, and they were the sole distributor of that in the U.S. So hopefully there will be another manufacturer. And distributor doesn't mean that it's Reflect Media. There you go. Hold on. I just sometimes it takes a minute because somebody ran into me the other day and reminded me that they had helped out at a trade show years and years and years ago, which oddly enough, we use Reflect Media on that particular show. And he had to remind me sort of what our conversation was about cameras and stuff, just briefly, and then I filled in the blanks. Yeah, it's Chromat, Reflect Media. Looks like you can, let me see if we can still get it. The tape is still available. Let me see if the curtains are. I see the lights, add to wish list, add to wish list. It looks like we're pretty much in a special order only at the moment, but that means the company is probably still around. But here's the thing. And I'm not trying to be, old man, wise over here. I think with the stuff that I'm seeing with Switchlight and even some of the other solutions, I'm not sure that we're going to be setting up and using a ton of green screen in the future, because I think that the stuff that's happening right now in that space, we may not need green screen to mat and keep that's the Switchlight stuff, like, just makes my head hurt that they're doing that in busy environments and how clean they are and the multi-process. Again, go to Beeble, BEEBLE.ai and check that out. Okay, let's keep going. David says, did you see that DOP Choice blow up book light Airglow? I 100% did. They're making it now for both a 1x2 fixture and also a 1x1 fixture, which they had over at the Cream Source booth. It is much bigger than 1x2 in terms of its physical size. The 1x2 fixture is tabled and sitting underneath it, but the surface area of the actual Airglow is considerably bigger. And it's essentially, it's not as big as, let's say, the Booklight kit that I created, but it's very, very, very interesting. And the quality of the light is very, very nice. I think the system is about $1,200 for the Airglow, for the larger one. I don't know how many modifiers it comes with, but they've really thought it through. For instance, the back part where you've got the light coming up and then it hits this back wall and then comes out to Talent is natively ultra bounce, but you can very easily, and they've set up the system where you can put silver on the inside of there. And the front modifiers can be changed as well. So you can put unbleached muslin, which they have already as part of the system, and other things. So the punchier your 1x2 source, obviously the more flexibility you have in terms of how you can modify the light. Yeah, LiDAR might be the future. I mean, it's pretty remarkable what Switchlight is doing with iPhones and things. And to that end, the other thing that's, I think, going to be kind of interesting, one of the pieces of kit that I thought was interesting was that Insta360 released a 8K version, the X4 of their 360 camera. That looks pretty interesting. That could be pretty interesting maybe for backplates and things for virtual production if there's enough dynamic range and information there. I don't know if there's a log mode, and I don't know how wide the color gamut is on the Insta360 products. I don't have a lot of experience with them. David, can you do me a favor and clarify what you're talking about when you say, so you know the depth of the scene? Oh, you're just saying maybe LiDAR is part of that, so you know. You're not asking me if I know the depth of a particular scene. Okay, I got it. David, but I was impressed with Airglow. I mean, DOP Choice is never the low-cost solution, but they build exceptionally good products that are really designed to be used day in and day out, and they're just made incredibly well. They're thought out very well, and they're quite universal. And I think they've moved towards being even more universal over the past few years. Part of that is because of the industry, because a lot of these cob lights have settled on Bowen's mount for things, so that makes it a little bit easier. But it's also just choosing to create modifiers and things for products where there's many of those products from different manufacturers, like a 1x2 panel. All right, good. 3:45. I'm gonna make it. My body it's holding on for dear life, but it's gonna do it. Yes, it does create a depth map. But David, if you're by a computer, just type in Beeble, BEEBLE.ai, and take a look at what Switchcraft is doing. What is it? Oh my, I always forget the name of the product. Switchlight. And see what they're doing. Okay. Go have some well-deserved rest. No, it won't be good. Yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna try to shoot an episode which just sort of talks about some of the things that I thought were impressive at the show. It's not going to be whiz bang amazing, but it's going to be sort of those things. David, can you clarify on the iFootage thing? Hoping you can put some good words for me. Oh, at iFootage. Yeah, I don't know why you need me to give. I know you just bought the right, the Shark Nano. That product is very interesting. So iFootage was demoing two new versions of their Shark Nano, the only difference being the length of the track. And I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't see Peter McKinnon's thing on the X4 from Insta360, so I should probably go check that out. DJI's LiDAR solution, that looks really interesting. What I love about it is not camera specific, and it's definitely designed for manual focus based lenses, but also cameras, so it doesn't really care. And it looks relatively or very compact. So it's a solution that they're creating not for their current camera systems per se, but for any. And that kind of opens up the door. If it's reliable and flexible and can do what it needs to do, then that means that you choose any camera you want. And if you need autofocus, you can add it to your camera. So you could be getting a Komodo X. You might be getting a Blackmagic camera, a Panasonic camera, a Fuji camera that doesn't excel at AF. And then you could say, oh, I want to get a Fujifilm X-H2S. I'll use the MK lenses, the 18 to 50 and the is it 55 to 135, and I'll use this LiDAR basically focus system from DJI, and I think that could be pretty impressive. Yeah, if you're PC based, David, you can just download the beta of Switch Lite, and I'd love to hear people's feedback. I'm trying to get a PC in here as soon as I can so I can start working with it. And I'm also going to try to start working with JetSet Lightcraft's product very soon. So, so those are some of the hits. I really like this new Pavo Slim 240 from Nanlite. It's essentially two 1x2 panels, but they fold into each other so that they just are flat. You open them up, and then you can basically attach them to a yoke, and then you can mount them on stands and rig them and stuff like that. I like that. I thought it was cool. And Rode released a couple of things. They have little handheld transmitters which are compatible with the wireless Pro system, and they're kind of like reporter mics. The only thing about them for me is those particular mics are from what I understand, they're omnidirectional, and that's not ideal in a trade show environment. Oftentimes, people will use a dynamic microphone, or they'll use a condenser microphone with a tighter pickup pattern. So, but I haven't really gotten a chance to use those, so I'm sure they're going to be great, but I just haven't really got a chance to use them. Brandon's here. What's up? It was good to see you and to meet your brother at the show. So that was pretty cool. And run around and check out some things. And I appreciate anybody who did come by the Production Hub booth for their happy hour, and they appreciate it as well. And we got to hang out and talk shop a little bit. David says, how was Monday's meetup? If you're referring to apertures, I have no idea because I skipped it. I went and had dinner with my friends, and then I was going to go to the B&H thing, and I was done with dinner, and I just, when I'm at these shows, I start early, and I have a mission, and there's never enough time. I mean, I spent 3. I'm not saying that, Brandon. I made a decision that I'm keeping that I'm keeping that offline, but I knew you were going to do that. But that's an inside joke, and there you go. So I made a conscious decision that I was going to the show as I always do, but it was really work related. But I really wanted to spend as much time as possible being able to look at and find solutions that interest me, and I think will interest a broad number of people going forward. When I was 15, Brandon, then I would have gone for that, but I'm not gonna, not a lot of stuff at this show for Canon. I mean, I think we're on a a countdown clock of some point, I would think this year, David. I mean, we've got, essentially only 2 RF mount cameras that I would consider in the cine space, which is the R5C and the C70. There's no digital cinema cameras that are full frame that have a native RF mount that are made by Canon. And we may not have any from Red in the future. All right. David said, yes, last month I bought the old, quote unquote, Shark Nano slider from iFootage for a job, and there's a bit more jitters than I would like, and saw that the new ones are better, bigger, and the new, improved points. I mean, it's definitely going to be an upgrade. It sounds like it's definitely months away from release, not weeks away from release. And they've told me that they've resolved that problem with the jitters. The track is completely different, both good and bad. The track is now essentially 15 mil rods, or what look like 15 mil rods. And I said to them, you might want to include an extra rod or two inside of the case, or make them readily available. I make them user changeable, because if you get a nick or something in those rods, then you're going to see bumps. But I think it looks great. A to H. So how many letters of the out? How many points is that? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. So you got 8 points in total that you can essentially assign and essentially keyframe. I've heard the app is going to be more precise in interpolation and ease in, ease out. I'd love to see how far they go with that. But it does sound like one, now that you're just not talking about 2 points, now you can start to get into some shots and some repeatability and some things that might be interesting. So hang in there, David. I mean, hopefully, did you buy it used, new? Did you pay the full price for it? And that's the other thing I do, by the way, is I like iFootage's monopod. I actually liked YC Onions more. But one of the things that I do try to do with manufacturers at the shows, unsolicited, I might say, is talk to them about price point and where I think where a product should be priced in the market, with a relatively good understanding of what other products exist and where they're priced. And yeah, so I did talk to iFootage, David, about maybe rethinking the price points they were telling me, and they kind of confirmed, because the owner of the company was there, that he was receptive to those price points, which is a good thing, because I think if they had kept them where they were thinking about pricing them, not only is other competition going to come into that space, but I just don't think we have the mindset that we're going to go for spending that much money. So I think that if they go with the price points I talked to them about, and I also did the same with YC Onion on their, I think their monopod, while great, and I really liked it a lot, I think they priced that thing way above where it should be, based on competition and what else is out there. All right, what do we got? We're going to go in for about another 5 or 6 minutes. And so do we have an at theC47? Yeah, David, I don't know. I mean, unless you're sort of in that window and you use it for that job and you feel like you want to return it and just wait, if you don't think you're going to be doing a lot with that slider until then maybe, maybe it's worth turning it in, because that thing is like $7.99, and if they're going to come out with something else and you're going to be annoyed by those micro jitters, then maybe return it. See if you can. I mean, I'm not saying return it, but I'm saying see if you can, and if it's within that window, maybe that's the right thing to do right now. And they're not the only company that's going to come out with some cool sliders. I don't think that segment of the market is completely done. It's a tool that we need sometimes, and especially the little compact ones. you know, you can compensate to a degree by using longer lenses for your moves and so on and so forth. But there you go. Brandon says, yes, YC Onion tripod was cool. Looks like Potato Jet partner with small rig. Yep, we talked about that earlier. And that tripod does look pretty cool. What about that sad tentacle timecode slate? Well, you know, David, I think it'll be rock solid in terms of what it does, but I kind of feel I don't know what it's going to cost. That's the thing. If that is really cost effective to take essentially their countdown clock and which is what it is and put that into the slate and the whole package is hundreds of dollars, then that could be really interesting because it's not, you know, changing the world, but it could be interesting. I have the Deity slate, and that timecode slate I think is a rock star of a slate. So I don't think I need anything else, but there you go. I think small rig partnering with several creators was an interesting play. Be interested to see how it all works out. Yeah, I mean, they have, as a company, been doing sort of this for a long time. They just haven't done it in this official way. $600 a slate. So if I was pricing it, and I think the problem, David, is that the time code thing costs, you know, quite a lot as it is. Here we go. Slate is $299 and the bar is $349. I mean, the slate itself, you know, and an acrylic slate, I wouldn't want to pay more than $200 for it. I think it should more be like 100 to 150. You know, that solution, if it was sitting in the four, no, I'm not going to say three. I'll say 400 to $500 price range, maybe think about it. But then you really start getting into thinking about a real smart slate, which is not what that is necessarily. I didn't see any other Maybe they can extend it. What's nice about Deity is you go into the Sidus audio app and you can put all of this other data. So once you slate, you know, it does your normal slate and then it goes through and all of that stuff you can freeze frame as an editor with lots of metadata about the project. All right. Anything from Adobe? Not that I saw. They probably have some new AI stuff. I mean, they're doing some interesting. Did anyone find the lava cat cart booth? We did not. I didn't. The owner of Tentacle Sync asked on one interview for a slate manufacturer to help them out. Could they not have asked someone before showing this? Oh, I had no idea about that. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting solution, that slate, but I don't know if it's necessarily. I think they got to get under $500 US. All right, what else? A couple more minutes, and then I might crash. Yeah, all in all, good show. Miller has a monopod also, which has a little button that's their solo cue. That's kind of interesting. Also similar, but Miller, so incredibly well made, and you know, you designed to use their like Air and their DS heads. Selling's definitely head cards and $60 stands, right, Brandon? Yeah. So standouts for me, lighting wise, probably the Infinimat. Really like those Pavo Slims, the newer ones that they're coming out with. I'm just trying to think of other stuff. Nothing really from Zhiyun that got me, you know, that excited. But there was there's a bunch of stuff out there. And, you know, DJI, you know, the Focus Pro system, the Insta360 8K camera I'm kind of interested in. The Switch Lite app from Beeble for sure. The Jet Set app from Lightcraft for sure. And Axoon came out with a comm system. I didn't get to try them though. Those look pretty interesting. All right, kids, here we are. We hit 4 o'clock, and I'm not creating any more content today. I'm going to try to figure out that live thing a little bit better, though, with Instagram, because I don't know if you can flip the camera while you're going live. If I can, and I didn't know if I could at the show, then I can see myself doing more of that in the future, even here in the barn, where I can say I'm working something out. Let me show you what I'm doing, so that it's not just a whole episode, and I can get some stuff like that done. Oh, and Magic, Magic, I think it is. They had a finally they got a little small slate. There used to be one from Newer. This one's better made. It's white on one side, black on the other. So it's a two-sided slate, and it's I think it's Magic or Image. 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 I think it might be like Image Video Solutions or something. Yeah. All right, kids, I'm out. Great to see everybody who was at the show and stopped by. Thank you, everybody, for your support on the channel. And yeah, tomorrow's daily drop will be one that I already did. Fridays will be new. And away we go. See everybody later. And thanks again.